Korea faces a host of fresh challenges on the trade front amid mounting geopolitical concerns, including the violence in Ukraine that look to aggravate market conditions amid an ongoing pandemic. For more, I have Trade Minister Yohan Gu here in the studio. It's a pleasure to have you here, Minister Yo.
Thank you for having me.
Right, Minister Yo, let's begin with a few words on the gains garnered by South Korea under its free trade deal with the U.S., which marks its 10th anniversary this year.
Yes, I think this Korea-U.S. FTA has been a big win-win for both countries. If I use a metaphor of recent times, I think Korea-U.S. FTA has been the booster shot for both of countries, especially for trade and investment relations. On trade front, but both countries, over the last 10 years, the trade has expanded over 70%. And in particular, during this pandemic, when the world trade has contracted, but our bilateral trade has increased 25%. I think on investment front, it's more remarkable that Korea's investment into the United States for the last 10 years has tripled, whereas U.S. investment into Korea has doubled. But more than the quantity, I think the quality of this investment really helped strengthening the value chain or supply chain in critical industries such as semiconductor, battery, electric vehicle, and etc. So all in all, I think that this Korea-U.S. FTA has really helped upgrading our bilateral ironclad 70-year military alliance into economic, supply chain, and also technological alliance.
Right, so it has served as a booster shot then.
Yeah.
Minister, your FTA negotiations between the two countries began in the year 2006, and it took more than 6 years of debates and delays before the deal was sealed by the two governments. Here on the domestic front, I remember covering local news about the concerns over U.S. beef imports amid prior cases of the mad cow disease. What are your thoughts looking back?
Yes, I think also I vividly remember some of the serious concern by our fellow Korean citizens. But I think looking back on the past 10 years, I think many of those concerns were turned out to be ungrounded, unfounded. For example, the beef. I think because of this, the high quality, more affordable beef from the United States, I think, including myself, we can enjoy more affordable, good quality beef, whereas this Korean beef, high-end and high-quality beef, has continued to increase production and price, which means that these two markets were sort of separated. And also on medical cost, I remember that after the Korea-U.S. FTA, this medical cost will skyrocket, but it didn't happen. We didn't open this healthcare market to the United States. Last year, Korea and United States has agreed to establish Korea-U.S. the vaccine, a global vaccine partnership, in which companies from both countries really collaborated to really produce and scale up this production of, for example, mRNA, this Moderna, this vaccine which are saving the millions of lives around the world right now. And also on culture. I mean, I also remember there was a serious concern on the screen quota issues. I don't have to repeat, what's happening in the U.S. right now. I mean, all this Korean culture, BTS, Blackpink, and also Parasite, Squid Game. I think because of this increased economic activities between two countries, this people-to-people exchange, and also the soft power of Korean culture became really popular in the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
Minister, earlier this month, that would be the 16th of March, you and your U.S. counterpart, that is Captain Tai, toured the SK Silton Sea SS Michigan site to commemorate the Korea-U.S. FTA's 10th birthday. Could you tell us a bit more about this particular agenda?
Yes, the USCR, Ambassador Catherine Tai, and myself have visited the SK Siltron factory in the state of Michigan because we agree that this is the future of Korea-U.S. FTA. This symbolizes the future direction of our economic cooperation and also Korea-U.S. FTA. Here's why. I think this factory is manufacturing this semiconductor wafer to be used for electric vehicle. And then this is Korean company invested the U.S. company. So I think it is contributing to really strengthening the supply chain in semiconductor as well as electric vehicle between two countries. And also, it is a high-tech, state-of-the-art green technology, which will contribute to this carbon neutral and then climate change agenda. And also is creating jobs in the United States, but also it is being put in place in many this electric vehicle to be exported from the United States to many other countries around the world. So I think this has a lot of good stories to share and then really exemplify where our economic cooperation between two countries should go in the future.
Right, the future course of our deal then. Now, for a broader assessment of Korea's FTA with the U.S., we share with you the words of Wendy Cutler, who is currently at the Asia Society Policy Institute, but was previously the top U.S. negotiator for the Korea-U.S. free trade talks. Our team here at the Daily Report had the pleasure of speaking to her earlier. Do take a listen.
Well, first, let me just provide my personal assessment, and that is that this agreement has been incredibly successful. 10 years later, we've seen a phenomenal increase in trade between the two countries and foreign direct investment between the countries, and just close ties between different companies and industries. And I think this has had positive spillover effects into our overall relationship. The agreement has also proved to be extremely resilient and relevant and has withstood the test of time. Now, in terms of what the U.S. government, what the U.S. government thinks, it's a little more complicated, and that's due to not the KORUS agreement itself, but the fact that the Biden administration is following a worker-centered trade policy, and in their view, these traditional trade agreements like KORUS are not really what they are interested in pursuing. So while they recognize the benefits of KORUS and they're praiseworthy of KORUS, I think they also believe that KORUS, like other traditional trade agreements, has exacerbated income inequalities in the United States and hasn't really helped the middle class. Well, my view is we should not embark on a renegotiation of KORUS. We've done this twice. It has been a very painful process for both countries, and it's become extremely politicized. So while the KORUS agreement could clearly use updates, my view is we should not seek legal amendments to the agreement. Rather, we should use the existing mechanisms and the committees and the dialogue structures of the agreement to work on the new issues that are facing both countries. We can also work together in regional and international groupings to address such issues, including the soon-to-be-announced Indo-Pacific Economic Framework by the Biden administration. And then you ask, like, which issues should we be focused on? And I think there's just a range of issues, including environmental and climate issues and their relationship to trade and to decarbonization, to energy security, to digital and emerging technologies, resilient supply chains, particularly in areas like batteries and semiconductors, where we share a lot of common interest and complementary technologies, as well as the whole health area, where we're already working together in vaccine development. But I think we can do a lot more, particularly as we're going to face a new pandemic at a certain point in time.
Right, Minister, let's continue our talk from where the former trade negotiator left off. Now, Cutler has spoken about the possibility of updates to the existing bilateral framework to better adapt to an environment of climate change and health issues, like vaccines, as you mentioned. What more would you like to add?
Yes, first of all, I agree with Wendy Cutler that we need to fully utilize the existing framework of KORUS FTA. There are many new, rapidly emerging trade issues, such as supply chain resilience and the digital economy, and also this climate change and environmental and many other issues. So we need to really use this KORUS FTA framework to tackle this new issue. That's why last November, when the USTR, Catherine Tai, visited Korea, we had a this joint committee meeting between two trade chiefs from both countries and agreed to enhance the channel of communication to tackle these new trade issues such as the supply chain resilience, the digital trade, and then carbon neutral, and etc.
Right. And now, again, prior to the program, we asked Wendy Cutler about her thoughts with regard to the future direction of the bilateral trade deal amid the disruptions, if you will, to global order. Do take a listen.
Well, in terms of our bilateral trade policy, I think we need to continue working on making sure KORUS works for the more traditional industries like autos, like agriculture, and make sure that both sides are implementing the agreement fully. But when we think about working together bilaterally, I think there's a lot we can do together to address many of the pressing challenges that the region and the global economy is facing today. I mean, in the aftermath of COVID and now with the Ukraine war, there's, the supply chain issues have become so front and center. And I don't think they're going to go away anytime soon. There are issues we can work together in the World Trade Organization to see if we can help this organization survive and remain relevant in the months and years ahead. So there's a lot we can do together, and I'm hoping that KORUS provides that basis. We have trust, we have a long history now of close economic relations, and now's the time to take it to that new level.
Right, the next level, as mentioned by Wendy Cutler then. Now, Minister, the Biden administration is seeking to secure, that is, an Indo-Pacific economic framework, as you mentioned, and as mentioned by Cutler earlier on. Korea, I believe, has welcomed this initiative for broader market collaboration. Having said that, what more can you share with us about Korea's strategy in that regard?
In fact, this morning, we had this IPEF-related the task force meeting, inviting experts from the private sector as well as academia, business community. Basically, Korean government is welcoming the return of U.S. leadership into this region. And we hope that this Indo-Pacific economic framework could be developed as an open and comprehensive and inclusive and forward-looking positive platform in which a lot of like-minded countries in the region can engage with United States and other countries. Some of the topics that this Indo-Pacific economic framework will try to cover is supply chain and also infrastructure and digital trade and also a climate change issue. And these are the very, very important, the real economic issues that we have to be ready for. So I think Korea welcomed this initiative and is ready to fully and actively engage with United States and other like-minded countries in the region for this.
There are many tangible tasks to be tackled, of course. Minister, where does Korea stand with regard to its efforts to join the comprehensive and progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Yes, we call it CPTPP. Korea has been preparing for this for the last 9 years. And now Korea is ready to submit our official application to join CPTPP in April. So actually last Friday, we had a public hearing and in person, but also online. And we recognize some of the concern raised by our agriculture and fishery community. But I'd like to recall ourselves about this KORUS FTA. What happened 10 years ago with all this concern, and then what happened 10 years from that moment. So I think Korea has this DNA to really turn a challenge into opportunity. And Korea is a country where we really grew our economy by open and then fair trade with the world. So I think CPTPP will provide another big opportunity for many Korean industries and the people to meet the new challenges and turn that into a new global opportunity.
Right. And having said that, Minister, what do you suppose is the importance of multilateral trade deals in modern society, and what role can Korea seek to play, perhaps?
Yeah. Korea is a leader in all these bilateral trade, free trade agreement. In fact, Korea has the 22 free trade agreement concluded with 59 countries, comprising about 85% of global GDP. So we are one of the most the network these FTA countries. But now, you know, the big the interest and concern of this global business community is a supply chain. You know, supply chain is about this regional, supply chain, and also with this regional trade agreements such as RCEP, CPTPP, or Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. I think all these companies can, develop this fully, this open new, we can say, the supply chain in the region and as well as globally. So in that sense, we think that this CPTPP or the RCEP and IPEF could provide a new opportunity for Korean companies as well.
Right. I remember you speaking to the media quite recently and talking about the importance of diversifying our markets. Right? Minister, what countermeasures do you propose on the trade front, given the possibility of a prolonged conflict in Ukraine?
Yes, we are very carefully monitoring the situation in the Ukraine. Korean government has joined international community and also the United States and other allies in joining this export control measures against Russia. In terms of our exposure with Russia and Ukraine, in terms of our trade, it's only 1.6%, so it's a minimal. But also, many Korean companies have invested in Russia, and also our companies are connected with these companies in two countries through the supply chain in some of the raw material or strategic material. So, we are closely monitoring what's happening, what's developing in regard to this war, and also taking all the policy measures to help our companies to really sustain and cope with this crisis.
Right. Finally, Minister, let's perhaps end, unless I have an impromptu question to ask you, a bit with your achievements as Trade Minister following your appointment back in August last year.
It is still ongoing process, so it's a bit early to tell the accomplishment. But what I can say is to really help developing this new framework on trade policy. The global trading environment is rapidly changing, and it's not just about this negotiating trade deal, but also the scope of trade has expanded, including this supply chain, this new emerging technology, and also digital economy and climate change. So I think that I helped this kind of developing this new framework on this trade policy. And also, as you rightly pointed out, all these regional trade agreements such as CPTPP, RCEP, and IPEF, I think Korea has really been active player in developing and collaborating with like-minded countries in developing these regional trade agreement.
Right, and a very short question. Do you suppose Korea's future economically looks bright?
Yes.
Right,
yes,
it
indeed.
does?
Yes.
All right, Minister, as always, thank you very much for your
Thank
time
you very
today and
much.
for your thoughts.
Thank you.